Hello and welcome to the Ice Guys. This is the show that takes you into the world of the National Hockey League. Every game, every day, from a betting perspective. With pro sports handicappers, Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, and various guests from the world of hockey and sports betting. And now, here's your host, Ian Cameron.
Welcome to the Ice Guys, Tuesday, April the 6th. Ian Cameron, Matt Robinson in the house. Alex is away until Friday when he'll make his return on the show. He'll also be in for the Betcast coming up on Thursday night, which is a great segue to remind everybody that we made the announcement yesterday on the show that our Patreon exclusive live Betcast in the Stanley Cup playoffs for this week is coming up Thursday night, May the 8th, starting at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. It'll be game 2 of the 2 games taking place tonight. It'll be Carolina-Washington Game 2, Edmonton-Vegas Game 2 coming up on Thursday night. So that will be the games in the series for our Betcast. Looking forward to it. Again, Thursday night, May the 8th, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Patreon exclusive once again with this live Betcast on Thursday night. So make sure you get on board if you aren't already. Just $10 a month. Patreon.com/IceGuys and be there for that Betcast. We hammered some over parlays at the end of the last one, and it was highly profitable that night with the Edmonton, LA, Colorado, Dallas games last Thursday night. So we made some pretty good money with that live Betcast too. So don't you dare miss it, and make sure you get on board at patreon.com/IceGuys for that and be with us Thursday night. We saw the second round. First of all, quickly about the draft lottery. Congratulations to the New York Islanders. It's funny, Lou Lamoriello finally is gone, and something good happens for the franchise. It's funny how that works. But, the Islanders move up to number 1. They get the chance to draft Matthew Schaefer. I know there's a lot of people saying that they should draft the local kid, James Higgins, because he's from the area. I think, though, if you're going to go for best player, highest ceiling, though, you'd probably have to take Schaefer, the defenseman. But it'll be interesting that they see what the Islanders do. San Jose falls to number 2, Chicago number 3, and typical Buffalo Sabres. When it rains, it pours. Nothing can go right. They actually fall in the draft a couple of spots. So crazy to see how that went for Buffalo. More bad news for a franchise that certainly had a bunch of it the last decade plus. But congratulations to the Islanders on getting the number 1 overall pick in the draft lottery. The second round began with, look, the NHL is on a massive heater right now as far as unbelievable hockey. We saw it over the weekend with 2 just scintillating Game 7s, spectacular games, Colorado, Dallas, and then, of course, St. Louis and Winnipeg. Just absolutely breathtaking, thrilling, edge of your seat hockey. Last night's game didn't disappoint either. It was a really good hockey game, very entertaining. The Toronto Maple Leafs, what a start. They couldn't afford to wade into this series. They couldn't afford to just dip their toe into the water and see how things are going to go. No, you have to be the aggressor. It's a team that beat you in the second round 2 years ago. You had to give them an early warning statement. It's going to be different this year. We're here to be a tougher out, and we're here to win this series. And the Toronto Maple Leafs came out with that kind of start. First minute of the game, seeing eye shot gets past Sergei Bobrovsky from William Nylander, who had a phenomenal game. Obviously last night for the Leafs. They got the 2-0 lead. Florida answers with a power play goal. And unlike Leaf teams of the past, where when something bad happens, it falls apart, when it got to 2-1, they answered. And you give them credit. Morgan Riley on a 2-on-1 rips a shot, very nice shot. Maybe a shot that Bobrovsky sometimes can stop, but it went in and it made it 3-1 Toronto, gave them some breathing room. They then made it 4-1. Of course, later in that game. And, of course, unfortunately, a really good hockey game marred by a massive incident, as we saw, involving Sam Bennett and Anthony Stolarz. Let me start with this. Accidentally on purpose is what that was. You can't tell me for a second he did not plan to contact Anthony Stolarz. He sure as hell did. Sam Bennett's done that in the past. There's no question about it. He definitely wanted to make contact. Now, was he trying to injure him and give him a fucking concussion? That we don't know what he's thinking, but he was definitely looking to make some contact for sure. There was definitely a point. And what's great about Bennett, and great, obviously, in terms of, I don't know if it's what he did was great. It clearly, and certainly Leaf fans are not going to think that what he did was great. But what's great about him doing these kind of things, like with the Marchand situation, now his teammate, of course, in Florida, what's Bennett has mastered the art of making it look so subtle that a ref can't spot it. A ref's not going to see it as overly flagrant and obvious. Like the punch on Marchand, it's not like it's not like you could clearly see him cocking back the fist and punching him. He did it like so subtly, like just boom, just a quick little shot, skewed from the camera's view and probably skewed from the referee's view at the time on the ice. When it comes to Stolarz last night, subtle again, like grazed him. You could tell it was just he grazed him. He made contact. It was a small shot, but he made sure he got a shot in on him. No question about it. But he didn't actually just rear back and elbow him right in the kabong. He didn't do that. But like I said, you could tell he was trying to make some contact with Anthony Stolarz there. Now, the question is going to be, he took a puck right in the head area, the mask area, knocked his mask off. He was clearly a little shaken from that, Anthony Stolarz. Was that the start of maybe some kind of head symptoms and head issues and a possible we don't even know if he's got a concussion. We think he does. The Leafs didn't say he has a concussion. Craig Berube just wouldn't really talk about it last night, or other than saying it should have been a penalty at the very least, clear penalty. But at the same point in time, we don't know for sure if he's got it. We assume. I think you got to probably have one, considering he took a puck high. And then, of course, what happened with Bennett after that. And then he's puking his guts out into the bucket, over the bench there in the second period. And only then the Leafs discovered, something's wrong here. And we're going to put Joseph Woll in the game for the rest of the night. And then, of course, they took now from the reports from everyone covering the game, Stolarz, puked in the bucket, left the game, didn't return. Joseph Woll took over. And Anthony Stolarz went off on a stretcher. Apparently was taken out of the arena on a stretcher and transported to hospital, where he stayed for a good few hours to get, examined and evaluated. So that didn't look good at the time. But then this morning rolls around, and Anthony Stolarz apparently was with his team at breakfast. They were having practice today. Everyone says he was in good spirits. Looks like it's not nowhere close to as bad, as what we saw initially when he left the game, even with the puke stuff going on. And Craig Berube didn't even close the door on him playing tomorrow night, Anthony Stolarz, in Game 2. So it's basically a very fluid situation. This could change, hour by hour. This could change day by day. Maybe he wakes up tomorrow and his head's bothering him again, and there's migraines and there's symptoms again. You never know with these things when a head injury occurs. So it's like hour by hour. It's very fluid. It's day by day. We think it's not as bad as it looked initially, with the fact that he was out of the hospital, back with the team here today. So the bottom line is, for those people expecting a suspension here towards Sam Bennett, I can't tell you. I'm shocked there isn't. I expected no suspension. We've seen a lot of things just from him that were worse than this, and no suspension previously. I mean, I know why you wanted one if you're a Leaf fan, because that's your number one goalie that's taken out potentially. And now, not solely. I want to stress this. It's not solely maybe because of that. He did take the puck, the shot, into the head area earlier in the game. So it's maybe not solely because of that, but it certainly contributed. Bennett, if the wheels were in motion of him already having head issues from taking the puck high, they were certainly exacerbated and accelerated with Bennett's contact. There's no doubt. But, it was a graze. It was not a clear on bringing his elbow back and just ramming him with that elbow. It wasn't, overly flagrant. It was a graze. It was just brushed by him type of contact. And at the end of the day, I'm not shocked one bit that Sam Bennett got no suspension. None. So I expected him to play all along tomorrow in Game 2. Now, if you're the Leafs, it's all about how you handle this. Are you pissed? Yes. Are you angry? Yes. Do you want retribution of some kind? Yeah, probably. You know what your retribution is tomorrow night? Win the fucking hockey game. Win a game. Win a game 2. Take a 2-0 series lead. That is how you get your retribution. If someone from the Leafs wants to step up and challenge Sam Bennett to a fight early in game 2, which I think could happen, Max Domi might, Brandon Carlo might, Jake McCabe might, Simone Benoit might. There are people that'll be willing to step up and probably drop the gloves with him. That's fine. And I applaud them if they want to go in that direction. And I applaud them if they're going to physically target Sam Bennett. But you got to do it whistle to whistle. You can't be headhunting. You can't be chasing him around the ice all night, running around. You've got to do it within the confines of the hockey game. Okay, you got to hit him hard, but do it in between the whistles. Don't do anything that's going to risk you getting suspended, you getting an unnecessary penalty, and putting Florida on the power play. That's what you got to do. That's what you got to do. I know you're angry, and we don't know if he's going to be back tomorrow, if he's going to be back at any point in the series. We don't know that yet. But what we do know is how you respond is important. You can't lose your composure, even though you may want to in this instance. You've got to focus on the end goal, and that's winning a game, winning a series, and ultimately winning a Stanley Cup, which you're trying to do. You've got a 1-0 series lead. You got to focus on what you have to do. If you want to hit Sam Bennett during that game tomorrow night at every opportunity, cleanly and hard, great. You should want to do that, and you should do that. You absolutely should do that, but you can't do anything flagrant, dirty. It's going to get you a bad penalty. It's going to get you maybe discipline from player safety. You've got to focus on win a hockey game, and that's going to have to be where the mind is for the Leafs tomorrow night. Third period, look, Toronto gave you some of those vibes again. It was a tough spot. I'm sure they're still reeling from Stolarz leaving the game. They were up 4-1. Maybe they got a little comfortable. Joe Woll thrown into a very tough spot, suddenly playing when he wasn't expecting it. And Florida, look, bing, bang, bang. 2 quick goals early in the third, 4-2, 4-3. That's why Craig Berube is a fucking winner, man. You see the timeout he took. He settled everybody down at 4-3. Said, you guys have played great. You got this, man. Just keep playing. I saw him actually, I read his lip during the timeout. It's basically what he said. Keep playing. You've had a great game. You're still up 4-3. And that settled everybody right down. Took the timeout. And then, of course, the Leafs, I thought, steadied the game after that. Joseph Woll, even though he had given up 2 goals, and I didn't love the Belinskas goal, he had no chance on the Cool Mint Lustarinen's goal, which was a tip. But he settled down. He made some big saves, and then just a wonderful goal. Beautiful, unbelievable friggin' backhand by Matthew Nyes on a breakaway set up by Marner to put the game away 5-3. Although Sam Bennett, the villain of the night, does get them back to within 5-4 deflection to beat Joe Woll. He had no chance on that one either, but the Leafs hang on, and they get that win. And I'm telling you what, if they had blown that game on top of Stolarz getting injured and now his status in doubt moving forward, it would have been catastrophic for the Leafs. So that was significant that Toronto got that game 1 win. They hung on, and we'll see about Anthony Stolarz moving forward. Like I said, I'm not shocked by the Sam Bennett no suspension. I'm just not. I wish, for my angry Leaf fan friends that are telling me, Ian, you're nuts. He's got to get something. I'm not shocked. I got to say it. I'm not shocked one bit that there is 0 suspension on that at the end of the day. And one thing I'll say about Berube, and I'm going to relate this to that numbnuts Jim Hiller one more time because that's still pissing me off days later that the Kings were sent home by the Edmonton Oilers. Berube said calling the timeout when it was 4-3, I just wanted to tell everybody, settle down. You're sitting back too much. You're sagging. Get back on your toes. You're letting them get to their game too much, was his exact quote. You've got to be on your toes, be aggressive through the neutral zone, and get back to play our game in the way we were playing in the first 2 periods. Would have been nice if Jim Miller decided to do something like that in a third period in Game 3 in Edmonton, or a third period in Game 4 in Edmonton. But no, didn't do that. In fact, we'll just sit back and take this assault from Edmonton, this just shooting gallery upon us, and now they're home right now because of that. Just preventative shell that they played. That's winning coaching, folks. Take the temperature of the team. You saw Florida had some momentum. Berube calls that timeout and sticks the fucking cork in that momentum. That's coaching. That's how you do it. That's how you get the job done. Jim Hiller, take fucking notes. Anyway, Matt, your thoughts last night on the Leafs game 1 win, the Stolars situation, and everything else in between.
Yeah, it was I was happy with the result of the game just because the only bets I had was I did a same game parlay with the first period full game over, which hit
Yeah,
easy.
over by Facta.
And
How
then,
fucking easy was that? That's the only
and
bets
then
I made
had
pre-game. Over 1.5 first period, over 5.5, which was the best bet on the show. Couldn't have been easier. The over by Facta
Yep.
there. Yep.
Yeah, I had the same game parlay and then the full game over separately. So by the third period, I was just cruising, watching the game. As far as the Stolar situation goes, I mean, to me, I'm not going to pretend I'm a doctor. I don't know for sure, but it seems like the shot maybe was more of the issue, and the Bennett situation could have definitely added to that. But I don't know. Maybe I've just seen goalies flail a lot. Maybe I've been in tight coming in with speed, and I really, maybe he threw out a little arm there. I think it's insane that people want him suspended. Um, in the playoffs for, it was not that egregious of a hit. If he clearly came in and took off Stoller's head, of course, if you're injuring a goalie intentionally, of course. But, I just, that's not what I saw. Again, the result I think was heavier on, um, the initial shot. He had the shake, I guess, that apparently is a sign of a concussion. Why wasn't he taken out then? And it probably would have avoided all this. But yeah, I think based on Bennett's response, he mentioned he talked to him after the game. They were back and forth texting. I think it's silly that people are losing their mind over it. Personally,
Well,
I've
about what
seen
he
a lot
said,
more.
because he didn't see the media last night. He finally spoke this morning, and he said, well, Stoley's a really good friend of mine, former teammate. Of course, I don't want to have that happen. I know Mikey's still upset with the Marchand thing last playoffs with Florida, Boston, saying this is the same drivel he basically had last time that there was an incident like this, that, oh, it felt bad, didn't mean for that to happen. It's kind of a hockey play. Yeah, I know. It is. You like to think he didn't mean to hurt him, for Christ's sake. That is a friggin' former teammate. Won a Stanley Cup with him last year. But he plays on the edge of the line, and sometimes he crosses it, Sam Bennett. And because of that, Matt, he's not going to get the benefit of the doubt from a lot of people.
Yeah, and I totally understand why people are up in arms. It's not like he's, if this same incident happens and it's Nick Robertson that hits Bobrovsky, are people freaking out that he's a repeat offender? Probably not. They'd probably give him the benefit of the doubt. You've never seen him, have any issues with this kind of stuff. So I think the fact that it's Bennett, it's getting a little more of an eyeglass on it. I think the end result of Stolars is making it a little more prevalent. To be honest, if I was a Leafs fan or Leafs player, I'd be more upset at Matty Tkachuk at the end of the game throwing knees and throwing cross checks.
Oh, slash to the back of Marner
expired.
and cross check too.
To me, that was
Gutless.
way worse.
I did not like that. Gutless.
Yeah,
you lost the game.
To me,
it's just
yeah,
he does that.
Yeah,
a
that's
lot.
after, because at least anyone that's ever watched a hockey game would know that Bennett at least is attempting to make a hockey play by going to the net. The Matty T stuff at the end is.
I'd take that fucking mouthpiece of his that he's always chewing on and it's hanging out of his mouth. I'd take it and throw it in the fucking stands like someone did 2 years ago. I would.
Yeah,
stick that where the sun don't shine. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, again, I commented last night on Twitter. I played against Stolars in juniors. I want nothing but the best for him. I just thought it was crazy. The reaction was such a heavy push on Bennett, and more people weren't just hoping for the best for Stolars. It just didn't look like that egregious of a play to me. But the Leafs held on. It got kind of hairy there towards the end. I thought it was getting a little worrisome. The fact the Panthers make it a 4-3 game and then take 2 penalties and the Leafs aren't able to capitalize. To be honest, I have a buddy that lives in Toronto now. He's an Australian from birth, so he's not like a diehard Leafs fan or anything, but he loves talking hockey with me, and he's become a bit of a Leafs fan. And I go, if they don't score on the second penalty, I would almost bet Florida, because it's like they're given the chances, and they had some good chances on the power play. But the fact they weren't able to score on either of those power plays was not good. And so yeah, Florida obviously with a good push. They even had a couple chances there with the empty net. Wall stood his own. That Sam Bennett goal to make it 5-4 was pretty insane. Obviously, kind of a weird bounce, but ends up going top shelf. And then Seth Jones had a couple shots from the point, but the D were stepping up and making blocks. I thought Tanev had a great game. If you had put goal, assist, point props on Tanev pregame, you probably walked away with quite a few dollars because I think that was like his third goal of the season, second career playoff goal. So that was kind of good to see. But yeah, the Leafs held on. I think if you're Florida, you're in a really good spot in that series. If you come back 1-1, I think they would have liked to get that first one so that they can kind of take the pressure off for game 2. But give the Leafs credit. I mean, they came out strong. They scored early. They made it interesting down the stretch, but they were able to get the gutsy effort and get the win. And I'm sure their crowd was happy to see them take that 1-0 lead in the series.
Like I said, should be this series is on now, folks. All it took was one game, and obviously a very controversial incident to happen for this series to ratchet up on the temperature meter. So buckle up. It's going to be a good series. It's going to be a long series, and excited about game 2 tomorrow night. All right, let's turn our attention now to tonight's action. We've got 2 games on tap. We'll also get Matt's early thoughts because obviously he won't be with us tomorrow on the Wednesday show. We'll get his thoughts on Dallas-Winnipeg as well, which will start tomorrow night with game 1. But we will begin with the Carolina Hurricanes taking on the Washington Capitals. Game 1 tonight in D.C. We've got the Carolina Hurricanes -140 road favorites, 5.5 the total here in this game. The big news, I guess, coming into this game tonight is that who would be in net for Carolina? Obviously, it was Pyotr Kochetkov that finished the New Jersey series due to the injury. And you talk about someone else that obviously had head contact in that series. He left a game earlier in that series due to injury, Freddie Anderson, and missed the last couple of games. It became Pyotr Kochetkov's net. And Pyotr Kochetkov did not play well down the stretch of the regular season. And I thought Carolina did a nice job in terms of he didn't have to face a ton of rubber. And you go back to the clinching game 5 of that New Jersey series, Carolina was out shooting New Jersey heavily. It was the Jacob Markstrom show. It's the only reason that game went overtime as long as it did. And it's a situation where you look at the Hurricanes, they were all over the Devils, and Kochetkov didn't face many shots, yet still had some issues at times and did give up a few goals. And now it's going to be back to Freddie Anderson here in between the pipes for game 1. Rod Brindamore saying he feels good, doesn't seem to have any symptoms or any lingering effects of the injury he suffered against New Jersey. So Freddie Anderson's back in net tonight for Carolina to begin this series. When you look at the season series, they were all pretty competitive games. Carolina played Washington tough. Carolina's got a gaudy set of, advanced numbers and stats that look very, very impressive. That's why they've been pushed to the series favorite here, despite not having home ice advantage and despite obviously Washington having the most points in the Eastern Conference. And what they did against New Jersey was very, very impressive. But again, it came against a Devils team that did not have a great finish down the stretch. It came against a Devils team that was without 3 defensemen. It was a Devils team that was without obviously Jack Hughes. And that was a New Jersey team that I expected Carolina to be able to take care of. I like Carolina in that series, and I expected them to take care of business against New Jersey, and they did. They beat a depleted, shorthanded team like they should have. Now you're facing a much better team. Now you're facing a team that obviously has been one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference in the NHL all season. Now you're facing a Washington team that obviously is going to have I think a forward group that's going to be more challenging to deal with. Now with Protas back, that's even more exemplified. You're seeing obviously Strome and Ovechkin and Wilson play great. Chikrin's been just dynamic from the blue line. Connor McMichael has stepped his game up huge in these playoffs. The Carolina forwards have been impressive. Svechnikov has found his game again. Jackson Blake's done a great job. Don't forget about Aho and Jarvis. And, of course, your former star, Matt, who I thought had a pretty solid first round for them, Logan Stankoven. So there's definitely lots to like about Carolina up front. The D, which I had some concerns about, because coming into the year, I didn't love Carolina's defense as much as last year, because outside of, Slavin, I thought losing Pesce was a big deal. Losing Brady Shea was a big deal for this Hurricanes team. But that blue line has played, pretty solid. We'll give them credit for that. Slavin and Burns had a really good series against New Jersey. Orlov Chatfield's really had a solid year. Gostisbehere, still worried defensively, but he's a great puck mover. And that part of his game, being on the power play has always been good. Sean Walker's a good puck mover. I find they're a more mobile blue line. I find, though, that if you can forecheck them and keep them in their own zone, you can make hay on them more compared than last year. Because I don't think defensively as a shutdown blue line, they're not nearly as good. Better moving the puck, better mobility back there, but not nearly as good as terms of the shutdown game from their blue line. The biggest factor to me is I don't dispute that Carolina can win this series. Sure they can. They're a really good hockey team, and Brindamore's a hell of a coach. He can probably go toe-to-toe with Spencer Carberry, the likely Jack Adams Award winner this year. It's a great coaching matchup. But I can't get over Old Man Infirmary, a trip to the emergency room waiting to happen, Freddie Anderson being in net for Carolina, and Logan Thompson being the opponent in between the pipes for Washington with the season that Logan Thompson's had, who's been outstanding, who was absolutely phenomenal in that Montreal series. And Montreal pushed Washington, and Logan Thompson was brilliant for the large part of that series. And to me, he clearly gets the nod in net. I don't buy into Freddie Anderson. I don't trust this guy. I don't trust him to play well for the duration of a series that's going to test him a lot more than the battered New Jersey Devils did. I don't trust him to stay healthy. I still have, memories of that Ranger urination down his leg in the elimination game last year where he completely shit the bed in the third period against the New York Rangers last year in that series. And to me, that's just being totally whiffed on by odds makers. This goalie that is absolutely a suspect goalie waiting to happen, in my opinion. So I'm on Washington in the series, as I mentioned. I'm going to take him here in game one, plus 120. And I like the over by Fecta even more. I like this over by Fecta here, over 1.5 first period, over 5.5. I'm taking it in all game ones. I expect more chaotic type of game, like Florida-Toronto last night. Defense is not settled in just yet. You're trying to get used to a new opponent. And we saw last night 9 goals, 5-4 between the Panthers and the Leafs. I think it's going to take time for all these series, in fact. Some series may not even become defensive series, like Edmonton-Vegas. I'm not sure there's going to be a ton of 2-1 games in that series, but I will say this right now. I think definitely as this series goes on, it'll get tighter. Washington doesn't mind playing that way, and certainly Carolina doesn't mind playing that way. But this first game, I see turnovers, I see sloppy play, I see defensive issues. It's been several days since both of these teams played, and you saw the layoff negatively impact the blue line and the defense more for the Panthers and the Leafs last night in their game one, and I expect more of the same here tonight. So first period over, full game over, another over by Fecta here. I'm already on Washington in the game and in the series, and that's it. Matt, what do you think here? Game one, Carolina, Washington.
This one will be interesting to watch. I feel like we haven't seen these teams in months, just with the craziness that's gone on with the series that went late, game last night. So it seems like it's been a while. Both these teams got out of the first round in 5, which I don't think was a big surprise to anyone given who they were matched up against. But one thing I thought was interesting today, I was reading an article that the 2 worst odds to win the Cup of the 8 teams left are Winnipeg and Washington at some books. I think I saw they were, I forget what the odds were, but what's interesting to me with Washington, so Winnipeg's had some injuries. They had a tough 7-game battle. They were down with 2 minutes left to a wild card team. Washington cruised through Montreal, and then, they're the second best team in the regular season record wise. And then they dropped to the second or tied for worst odds to win the cup. It just something seems off to me about that. I mean, I I said it during the regular season. Washington was a huge surprise to me. I think preseason I may have picked them to not even make the playoffs, and then they were right there in the President's Trophy hunt. But to me, it's one of those things like until they give me a sign of a reason to like doubt them, it's hard to doubt them. They were finding a way to beat Montreal. It seemed like a fairly low impact series. There were some fights on the bench and things like that, but not anything too terrible went on during that series or anything like that. So, yeah, more power to them. I think Carolina, I think for both of these teams, it's going to be an interesting first because they're playing a team that's much better than the team they played in the last round. Much more playoff caliber, if you will. New Jersey had a banged up blue line, was sort of on fumes there. And then Montreal, a young team, a hungry team that could, make some games interesting, but, not a lot of playoff experience or anything like that. So I think it'll be a little bit interesting seeing both teams feel each other out. Given the break, you guys talked about it on the show yesterday. I'm in the same boat. I think the forwards come back a little quicker than the D when you get these, extended 5-6 day breaks in the playoffs. So I like first period and full game over. I could see value on Washington. I'm just not sold. I think Carolina could definitely win this game. I think to me, if I was to make a bet on a side, it would be that this is 1-1 going back to Carolina. So I think, each team takes one game. In a perfect world, each team will take one game in Carolina, and then we'll have a best of 3 to battle it out. But don't have a ton of feel for the sides just because I think it's sort of a unique series where neither team played a team that's super strong last series, and then I think both of these teams are pretty good teams that can win this series. So for me, I'll just stick to a simple over by Fecta. There might be some props that I mentioned later. I'm still kind of looking through that, but yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, no doubt. The home team won every game, by the way, in the regular season. Not that matters, but Carolina won both games at Lenovo Center in Raleigh, and Washington won both games here at Capital One Arena in the 4 regular season meetings between these two teams. So it was 2-2. No, it's a great series, too. And don't underestimate, we talk about how Florida-Toronto, the bad blood's already started, and, already a lot of vitriol with the two teams. Don't sleep on this maybe getting nastier than you would think. There's no doubt. I think when you look at it, don't forget these teams. Remember the incident too with Jalen Chatfield, and I forget who it was for the Capitals, but boy, oh boy, almost that incident where he got swung down to the ice, almost hit his head. I mean, that was a scary moment there, and it's just some bad blood at the final regular season meeting between the two teams. So, you look at it, and don't sleep on this series maybe getting a little bit nasty and a little bit cantankerous between the two teams. There's no question. Yeah, it was McMichael. It was McMichael, actually. Now it just came to mind. It was McMichael that it was involved in that with Chatfield at the end of the season. There's a lot of props I like. Like I said, I'm on Washington in the series, so I'm actually betting Washington individually here in game one, a little bit smaller. I don't need to go big on Washington here in game one. I'm on them in the series. So that's a small bet. The over by effect is what I like the most here. Like I said, I just find we're going to see with these first games of each of these series where it's going to take a game at least for the defenses to round into form. And we saw that last night with Toronto, Florida. Like I said, that over by effect, it couldn't have been any easier last night with that Florida and Toronto game. There are some props that I do like here when it comes to this game tonight. Connor McMichael's been a point machine. So whether you want to take him to get a goal, get an assist, or just take the point prop, absolutely zero argument for me on that. He's been great, and he's been going to the areas to score goals for the Capitals. So I'm on that. Dylan Strome's on an 8-game point streak. Talked about how great the chemistry's been with him and Ovechkin. And so, yeah, I mean, goal assist, if you want to take that instead of just laying the big price with him to get a point. Aho's on a 4-game point streak. You do have to lay a bit of a price there. So you got to maybe look toward Aho goal and assist instead. Same thing goes with Seth Jarvis. He's on a 4-game point streak for Carolina. Svechnikov's on a 3-game point streak. That price is reasonable, minus 120.25 for him to get a point here in the game tonight. Jacob Chikrin, he's been noticeable 3-game point streak from the back end for the Washington Capitals. So there's someone to keep an eye on here. He's been really getting involved offensively from the back end, Chychrun, and we saw that obviously in the Montreal series in the first round as well. Tom Wilson's on a 2-game point streak. Jackson Blake on a 2-game point streak continues to get opportunities up in the top line's role here for Rod Brindamore alongside Aho and Svechnikov, and still only even money for him to get a point. So outstanding value if you're going to look toward Jackson Blake here for the Carolina Hurricanes. So there's actually a lot of really good prop opportunities. I like Logan Stankoven, the Stank Man here as well. His second line, it looks like, to begin this series. Remember, he got bumped up a little bit. Hall and Kotkaniemi is where he's playing. And, of course, Martinuk for Carolina. You can never totally forget to maybe take a shot with him. He's kind of Mr. Playoffs for the Carolina Hurricanes, can step up, and make an impact offensively. So those are definitely a lot of good props, a lot of good players to target in that game. As far as players that are feeling it, players that are on a roll here in the playoffs, producing for their team. There's a lot of players on both sides in that sort of boat. All right, we move along now to the second game of tonight's second round Game 1 doubleheader. Edmonton and Vegas. We've got the Vegas Golden Knights -135 home favorites, 5.5 being the total here in this game tonight. I said yesterday on the series previews that we did on the Monday show, this was as tough a series as there was to pick for me. I thought there was flaws for both teams coming into this series. I ended up picking Edmonton in this series, and after doing some thinking and some, just some looking at stats, looking at the matchups, looking at the head-to-head between the teams this season, knowing what happened last night with Toronto, Game 1 at home against Florida, facing the team that knocked them out in the second round 2 years ago, you can pretty much say same damn situation here. Edmonton, their first chance in the playoffs against a Vegas team that knocked them out in the playoffs a couple years ago. I think Edmonton's ready for this. I think they maybe have a chance to steal Game 1. I'm going to give the Oilers a shot here, +115 in this game. I think Connor McDavid to Gene Principe on Saturday, we owe him one. Haven't forgotten what happened 2 years ago against the Vegas Golden Knights. I think Edmonton comes out, and Edmonton knows they got away with a brutal start in that series against Los Angeles. They got away with 2 really poor games, especially Game 1. We're not coming out ready in that. Now you're facing a team that knocked you out 2 years ago. To me, there's still concerns with Vegas. I love the blue line, but Aiden Hill, was kind of up and down throughout the course of the year. The depth didn't always show up as far as this goes here for Vegas at times. And I stand by the fact that who are the 2 best players in this series? They are McDavid and Draisaitl. They just are, and that's no slight on Eichel. Eichel's probably next in line, but he's still not McDavid and Draisaitl in the overall pecking order. They could not contain Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Boldy for extended portions of the Minnesota series. And I know they ended up winning that series, but now you're going to basically, elevate it tenfold to having to deal with McDavid and Draisaitl here in this series. Do I have concerns about the Edmonton blue line? Of course. Not good enough against LA, and they won the series in spite of their struggles there. They're going to have to shore that up. But I continue to think Edmonton is going to, as they found ways to win. They're a very resourceful team. And the one thing I said yesterday is I have a hard time laying a series price with Vegas as a favorite against a team that has shown a lot of guts, a lot of resolve, a lot of heart, a lot of we're never out of a game mentality throughout the Los Angeles series, throughout the Stanley Cup final last year, where when they were down 3-0 against Florida, they could have said, that's it. We're not coming back. And they instead pushed Florida to Game 7. They had the Florida Panthers fucking shitting bricks that they were going to, have the collapse of a lifetime in the Stanley Cup final, up 3-0 and losing in 7. And the Oilers lost by just 1 goal in a Game 7 that really could have went either way. So they have shown me enough character, Edmonton. I think because of the element of losing to Vegas 2 years ago, they come out storming here in Game 1 and have a decent chance to take game one on the road here against Vegas. And I'm going to take a shot with them here, plus 115 in game one. Similar to what I saw with Toronto last night. They're playing the team that knocked them out 2 years ago, and Toronto was ready from the opening puck draw. In fact, I'm going to go one step further. Instead of just going money line full game on Edmonton, I'm going Edmonton first period money line as well. That maybe they jump on Vegas early, because the first period was Toronto's best period last night. We're getting this. We're going to show this team right off the face-off. It's going to be different this year. We're going to be tougher. We're going to be better. And I think Edmonton's going to have a strong start tonight. I feel it. Especially because Chris Knobloch is going to drill it into the players. McDavid and Draisaitl, you don't have to tell them. They know. We didn't start the series on time against Los Angeles, and it nearly cost us the series. We did not start that series well. We need to be ready to go and better immediately, right from the start here in game one. So I'm going to do an Oilers money line split, first period and full game. And this is an over by Fecta that I really like. I think this is definitely going to be a series where it's going to be goals early. This could also be a series where it maybe eventually we're going to get unders, maybe. But I remember 2 years ago, it was a high-paced series that these two teams played in the postseason. It really was. And you look at what we saw in that series. Like I said, it was a high-paced series between the Golden Knights and the Oilers 2 years ago. Just trying to see where it is right here with Vegas. There we go. Yeah, we saw 6-4, 5-1, 5-1. There was one game that was 4-1 in that series, game 4 in Edmonton, and then we saw 4-3, 5-2. In fact, there was so much scoring early in that series. Game 1 of that Vegas-Edmonton series in 2023 was 6-4 for Vegas over Edmonton, 6-4. There was 10 goals in that game. It was Brossoit in net against for Vegas in that series to begin it against Skinner. Remember, that's when Brossoit got injured. Adin Hill took over, and the rest is history. Adin Hill just ran him all the way to the cup that year. It was 6-4 in game 1 2 years ago between Edmonton and Vegas here at T-Mobile Arena. And there were 10 goals in that game 1, and there was so much offense, Matt, that they had to adjust the total to 7. The total for game 2 in that series went up to 7. By the way, that's a typo on my part. That total should be 6.5, not 5.5. There we go. We'll fix that. There we go. 6.5. If it was 5.5, I'd be betting 2 units on that over tonight. But I still like it at 6.5. But 6-4 in game 1 2 years ago, and again 10 goals, and the total was 7 in that series for the next 4 games. The total was lined at 7. The game 2 total was 7. The game 3 total was 7. The game 4 total was 7. The game 5 total was 7. And then they dropped the game 6 total for some reason to 6.5, even though game 5 was 4-3. It had 7 goals. They dropped it for some reason to 6.5, and that game was 5-2 at the end of the day. So that series had a lot more goals than you would think. So, yeah, over by Fecta. And then you factor in, of course, the teams haven't played for a handful of days here, getting used to a new series. I find it's the defense is further behind starting a game 1, like we saw with Florida-Toronto last night, like we saw in a lot of the first-round series. Look at Tampa, Florida, over in the game 1. Toronto, Ottawa, over in game 1. Countless examples. Winnipeg, St. Louis, that game was nuts in game 1. Goals galore. So I have committed in these game 1s. Over by Fecta is the way to go. Matt, what do you think here? Interesting series. I know you're not a big Vegas fan. Personal with Mark Stone, still going back to the Miro incident. What do you think here, though? Game 1 and the series, for that matter. Oilers, Golden Knights.
For sure. I think you made a lot of great points, and we're aligned on a lot of things as far as, maybe a fast pace to this series, some high scoring games. I do agree that I think Edmonton, they didn't get lucky. I think LA sort of fizzled out there in that last series, but Edmonton didn't start out very hot and, kind of turned it on as the series went on. So maybe they've got some momentum coming into tonight. As far as the series goes, I would probably I don't have any bets on this series. I can see it going either way.
One more thing to throw in, just so everyone's clear on this. I like Edmonton a lot more tonight in game 1 than I do for the series. I think the series could go either way. I just like the spot and the situation here in game one for the Oilers. Go ahead.
Yeah, if I was to just, I don't have any futures on this series. I don't really have any futures on these teams. If I was just to throw out a number, give me Edmonton in 6. But I think Vegas could win in 5, and I wouldn't be that shocked. I think, this will be a back and forth series. I'm going to be interested to see how Vegas comes out tonight as well. I think they weren't that impressive in the Minnesota series at times. There were games that they looked like a team that shouldn't be in the playoffs, and then there were times they looked back to, being a cup contender. When you're playing Minnesota, who's getting guys back from injury, they traditionally seem to lose in the first round. You can get away with some of that stuff, but when you've got an Edmonton team that I don't feel is quite as deep as they were last year, but they've still got the two best players in the world, if not two of the top 3. Maybe you could throw McKinnon in that conversation with Draisaitl as well, and McDavid. But you've got 2 high caliber players. They were in the conference final or in the cup finals last year, won the conference finals last year. I think it's a different beast for Vegas. They're playing a team that has been there. Can Skinner play well? We don't know. He played out of his mind in a lot of series last year. Haven't seen the same Skinner this year, so I think I saw that he's confirmed for game 1.
Pickard.
It's Pickard.
It's definitely not Skinner. I'm not at all shocked. It's Pickard. They're not going. Skinner's only getting in if there's an injury at this point. That series turned like they didn't lose a game with Calvin Pickard once they made that change in that LA series. Okay. And I got to give him credit. He's playing the best hockey of his life. Now, can he keep that up? And I still don't love that Edmonton D with Klingberg and company. Although he made a nice block shot. He dove to keep the puck out in one of those games. I give him credit for that.
I mean, the fact that there's a game Klingberg and Janmark are both on the score sheet for Edmonton is pretty wild. So good to see for the former Stars.
Some Dallas past.
But no, as far as this game goes, I'm on the same page with you. I'm going to take a shot with Edmonton money line. I think that's good value. Again, Vegas could come out and prove that, hey, they're going to take things a little more serious. And, I probably wouldn't feel that way in game 2. But I'm going to take the over by Fecta. I've got Edmonton money line split with a quarter unit on team total over 3.5 plus 115. And then team total over 4 plus 190. That way, on the off chance it goes into overtime 4-4 and Vegas gets the win, at least I get a little bit of my money back. Things like that. So, but I think it's going to be a high scoring affair. I saw someone in the chat mention over 7.5. Maybe not a bad play. I'd agree. I think, this has the capability of being a 5-4, 6-4 empty net type finish. So, hoping for a lot of goals, which means it'll probably be 0-0 going into the third. But yeah, should be a good game, good series to watch, and exciting to see how both teams come out.
I like the mental side of it for Edmonton here. Like Toronto last night. They've won the cup. We haven't. They beat us 2 years ago. We want to change that this year. Toronto came out like it last night. Right away, could tell. We're here to show Florida it might be different this time around. I think Edmonton's going to play that way tonight. You have the cup 2 years ago. We want it this year. You knocked us out en route to that cup 2 years ago. We're going to show you it might be different this time around. I expect Edmonton to come out with that kind of approach tonight and play one hell of a game. And we'll see if it's enough to win. And I certainly think they're going to be ready to go right from the opening puck drop, which is why I'm doing a split here with the first period money line and the full game money line here with Edmonton in this game. Like I said, the series, Vegas could still win the series. I just like Edmonton here tonight. I like this emotional, mental element of this handicap, in my opinion, very much like we saw with the Leafs last night against the Panthers. The only difference, of course, is the Leafs were at home and the Oilers were on the road. But I thought the Oilers played one of their best road games of the entire season and certainly played their best road game against Los Angeles in the most recent road game they played, Game 5, where they just dominated LA, suffocated them in that game. Now, I know that was dead legs and tired LA legs because of the idiot coaching. I get that. But nevertheless, Edmonton's best road game in that series was Game 5. So I like the situationals here. for the Oilers in this game. As far as props go, and of course the over by Facta, as I mentioned. And as far as props go here for this matchup, Oilers and Golden Knights, when you look at the lineup combinations here for Edmonton, looks like they're going to start off with Draisaitl, McDavid, and Perry's going to have great value if he stays with McDavid and Draisaitl. Kane, Nugent Hopkins got going. Nugent Hopkins, by the way, as far as points, he's on a nice little heater. 4-game point streak, and you can get even money just to get a point for the Nuge. Ryan Nugent Hopkins, 4-game point streak. Mark Stone's on a 3-game point streak for Vegas. Eichel with 2 games in a row with a point. So those are the point streakers going into this game. And you know what's funny about Edmonton is that once that LA series kept going, Matthias Janmark gets on. We talked about their depth, and I had issues with it, questions about it. Matthias Janmark starts scoring a goal. Connor Brown and Adam Henrique chipped in. Trent Frederick, finally healthy for the Edmonton Oilers, got on the board a little bit as well. So, like I said, if they could, it's going to be just found treasure at the bottom of the sea for the Edmonton Oilers if they can continue to get those depth contributions from the bottom 6. The question is, will they? Because, Vegas has the kind of team that can get those. They can get offense from Nick Waugh on the third line, or Riley Smith on the third line, or Brett Howden on a fourth line. Brett Howden scored an overtime winner in Game 5 of the first round against Minnesota. So, yeah, they can absolutely get those kind of depth contributions. It's going to be important for Edmonton to get those. And draw penalties. Not easy because Vegas was very disciplined during the season. Fewest penalties taken in the NHL. But the thing is with Vegas, if you get them to take penalties, their penalty kill is a little overrated, in my opinion. So that's going to be the key here for the Oilers. If they can win those one-on-one puck battles, draw those penalties, and put themselves in a situation to get on the power play for sure. Matt, before we get to a bargain bin special and best bets to wrap up the show, just a brief, quick thought on Game 1 for your Dallas Stars tomorrow night against the Winnipeg Jets. As of now, the latest update is, we saw Josh Morrissey and Mark Scheifele in non-contact jerseys earlier today for Winnipeg. So that definitely is an indication that they're trending toward being out for Game 1. Doesn't mean for sure they will be, but it certainly is trending in that direction. I'm fascinated to hear your thoughts, Matt. You already know how I feel. I think it's from a side perspective, it's a very difficult game. You've got a team that's in one of the worst spots imaginable for a Game 1 in Winnipeg, coming off this thrilling comeback of a lifetime. Guys like Neil Pionk playing 46 minutes on the blue line Sunday night, and you got to come back around and be ready to dialed in and fresh to play a Game 1 against a new opponent. I think it's a brutal spot for Winnipeg. That being said, the opponent never wins a Game 1. The Dallas Stars have been, that's where it's almost become like all right, this is the game we're going to lose and we'll see in Game 2. That's how bad it's been for the Dallas Stars in Game 1 of a playoff series for years now. As great as DeBoer and the Stars are in Game 7, they're every bit as horrible in Game 1. So we'll yet if there's ever a time they're going to change that possibly against this Winnipeg team, shorthanded, depleted, coming off the Blues comeback and the minutes piling up on the blue line for their best defenseman still standing. If they're ever going to win a Game 1, Dallas, you'd think maybe this is it. So how do you see it, Matt, the series and Game 1 with Dallas and Winnipeg?
All great points. Coming in 0-8 in their last 8 Game 1s.
It was 0-7 or 0-8. Wow.
Yeah, I think it's 0-8 because of the Game 1 last series. But, it took them 8 losses in a row to get that first win a couple weeks ago against Colorado. So maybe 8's their magic number. Maybe they can get it done. But no, I think it's setting up to be a great opportunity for them to break the curse. Especially those are 2 key guys that are going to be out or potentially out for Winnipeg. I guess somebody was telling me if they're in non-contact jerseys at morning skate tomorrow, it's a fact, like they can't play. Obviously, if they're in regular jerseys, that doesn't mean they will play, but that means that they're eligible to play.
The possibility becomes greater, yes, if that's the case.
So, but I think, with those 2 guys out, the worry for me as a Stars fan is Hellebuck, going to be back? Is he going to go? I think if they give
Was
up
that a
2 goals
mental
early to
cleansing
Dallas
for him?
tomorrow.
Yeah, game 7,
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
if he gives up 2 weak goals in the first period of Dallas, I think you've got Jake Ottinger on the other side of things. I think, it's going to be very tough for Winnipeg. So, um, I think that's a big factor in the series. But I do think, given how they won, it was even more wild than the game 7 the night before, which was hard to believe. They did have to play almost 1.5 extra periods. I think it may have been just over. I forget when I guess it was over 1.5 periods. So, um, almost 2 extra periods of hockey to get it done. They had to come from behind. So, that's always a little bit more of a grind than, coasting into overtime and then, winning in overtime. They had to kind of fight back to get to overtime and then obviously eventually win. Um, so yeah, I think, I do think it's interesting that the series is so lopsided from an odds perspective, but then game 1, given all those factors, like, are they really heavily looking at Dallas as just god awful on game 1s? Like, for them to be kind of a low favorite, I'm seeing like -120 going into tomorrow. Um, I would probably take a shot with Dallas. I don't know if I will. I may look at like some team total stuff. I haven't really personally looked too in depth. I know there's going to be some prop opportunities because there's some shifting in lines, and I think it's looking like while Winnipeg is going to be out, their top center and top defenseman, Robertson will be back tomorrow night, which not only boosts them into a position where they've really got 3 first lines that they can kind of adjust and maneuver. It's looking like they're going to keep that finish line the same and then maybe reunite Ben and Sagan with Duchesne in the middle. And then on that third line, it would be Marchman, Robertson with Wyatt down the middle. So 3 pretty scary lines. I mean, the fact that Wyatt Johnston is as good as he is and is playing as good as he is in the playoffs. I mean, 3 goals in 3 game 7s, 2 game winners. He's not even 22 years old yet. And then Robo, who's had over 100 points in a season, top goal scorer for Dallas in the regular season, sitting on the third line. Boost the power play. Then you've got 2 good units. So I think it's a good spot for Dallas. It's not a hammer spot. I'm not hammering a team that's 0-8 in game 1s, but I do think it's a good look for Dallas. And I think for Dallas, given how Winnipeg's played on the road in this playoffs, in last year's playoffs, I think if they can get this game 1 win, it puts them in a really comfortable spot to win the series. So it kind of eliminates the home ice factor that Winnipeg will have. Kind of creates a series, try and keep it into like the mind of 6, and then if you need to win 6 to win, you've got that game at home. So yeah, I like Dallas tomorrow. I'm not sure on sides totals at the moment. If it's over 5.5, I'll probably jump on that. And I would also, if Morrissey and Scheifele are both out, I would probably jump on a first period over and maybe a Dallas over 1 in the game or in the first period. So I think they know they want to come out and score early, especially if Winnipeg's battling some injuries, coming off a crazy game, pretty banged up across the board, not just those 2 guys. They took a lot of brutal hits in that game 7. St. Louis was out for vengeance. So, Dallas, that extra day off, a couple guys at the Byron Nelson enjoying some sun there in Dallas. Nice recovery. So, yeah, it's a great spot for Dallas. I think they need to get 1 in Winnipeg and why not win tomorrow? So,
yeah, you don't have to tune into the show tomorrow to know I'll be on the over by factor here as well with Stars and the Jets. Both game 1s went over both game 1s went over 5.5. I should say, because the Dallas Colorado game 1, that was that 5-1 Colorado win in Dallas in game 1 of that series. And then of course we had that crazy just track meet that just exploded with the Blues and the Jets in the game 1 in Winnipeg, where it was like goals galore early and it easily flew over it ended 5-3 Winnipeg. It was 2-2 after the first period of that game 1. So yeah, over by factor for sure again with the Stars and the Jets. And I've mentioned it before, game 1s in the playoffs, first round and so far, in the second round, I trust the defenses to be a step behind. Just like kind of what we saw, as I mentioned again last night with the Panthers and the Leafs. But great stuff. Looking forward, obviously, to that series as well. And this second round, man, I hope the Toronto-Florida series is everything like last night. I hope the other 3 series deliver because they all have potential to be great series. So very much looking forward to this second round, just like we're looking forward to the live betcast Thursday night, May 8th, Patreon exclusive, 7 p.m. Eastern. It'll be game 2 for Carolina, Washington, and Edmonton, Vegas. Make sure you get on board. $10 per month. Patreon.com/IceGuys. Goalie charts, totals charts, our daily betting cards, sides, totals, player props posted each and every day on the Patreon page. So make sure you get on board. And again, your subscription goes a long way to supporting the show and keeping us going long term. So make sure you check it out. Patreon.com/IceGuys. And also make sure you check out the Ice Guys store, iceguys.myspreadshop.com, and support the Robinsons, our favorites, Maddie and Ryan. You can get Robinson gear now, the Robinson hat, the Robinson hoodie, the Robinsons t-shirt. Great design, awesome stuff. Support these guys that do great work joining the show on a recurring basis throughout the season with us. So again, the Robinson gear and merch is in the store as well. It's got Dallas green, of course, colors, which you would expect. So make sure you check that out. Again, iceguys.myspreadshop.com. All right, we got bargain bin special of the night and best bets coming up in just a moment, right after we hear from our great Ice Guys sponsors.
Support for the Ice Guys podcast is provided by Boston Hemp Incorporated, Tailgater Social, and a big thank you to all that subscribe to the Ice Guys Patreon page. Everyone loves a perfect pair. Bacon and eggs. Thunder and lightning. Mario and Luigi. A hot dog with fries. Ian and Alex B. That's right. Everyone loves a perfect pair. So why not pair up your game nights with Boston Hemp? From exotic flower to concentrates and edible products. You'd be hard-pressed to find a better pairing than Boston Hemp and hockey. Check them out today at bostonhempinc.com. That's bostonhempinc.com. Boston Hemp Incorporated, the official smoke sponsor of the Ice Guys. Void where prohibited by law. Not available outside of the United States. Must be 21 or over to obtain products. Check your local regulations to see if Boston Hemp is available in your area.
Hey, Alex, have you checked out the latest with the great trading platform Kalshi?
Yes, I have. It's been fantastic. This is one of the first and only federally regulated prediction markets in the U.S. And if you're looking for odds for all kinds of different things, not just what we're talking about, the markets in the Stanley Cup, the NBA Finals, you can trade crypto. You can look for trades within the markets involving entertainment, politics. There's all kinds of different markets you can look for. And you can use the odds over at Kalshi.
Time of year to get involved with Kalshi. Certainly if you're a sports fan, Stanley Cup playoffs, NBA playoffs, baseball now underway, with all the different markets to create winning trades. Make sure you're checking out all that Kalshi has to offer.
Absolutely. And if you're trading with Kalshi, use the link kalshi.com/iceguys. You trade $100 or more, they will send you $10 back. So it's fantastic to use, like I said, any kind of markets beyond sports. We're talking entertainment, politics, crypto, basically anything you want.
So make sure you sign up, kalshi.com/iceguys. Note that it's live on Robinhood and available in all 50 states, making it the first legal place to trade on these kind of events nationwide. Check it out, kalshi.com/iceguys. Shout out to all our great sponsors. Boston Hemp Inc., 20% off using the promo code IceGuys. And, of course, Also, Kalshi.com/Ice Guys, great trading platform. Make sure you check that out. It's actually a really good question here. When talking about the over by Fecta, if that parlaying the first period of full game over, it's always separate for me. Always separate. There have been plenty of instances where one is cashed and the other hasn't, where first period over but full game doesn't, or full game over hits but first period over doesn't. So I always do separate. However, you could always bet them separate, and if you want to do a smaller parlay of the two, that's fine. I don't know. I would have no objection to that.
And I mentioned that sometimes I'll do the same game parlays on a game like today where Edmonton Vegas is over 6.5. If you want to get a plus price, but you're worried about, maybe it's a 4-2 finish, you get over 1.5 and over 5.5. It'll give you a plus price. So I've done that before. So there may be some confusion with the SGP. But yeah, over bifecta is separate. And then the over trifecta obviously is first period, both teams to score added into that over bifecta all separately.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Yeah, it's like I say, when it comes to the over bifecta, like always, we want to go 2-0. We want to cash both. But the thing is, if you take just the parlay route, and let's say you put them in a parlay, and it's 1-1, only with the first period over or the full game over hits, only one of the two hits. If you bet the parlay, you lose your entire bet amount there. Whereas if I go 1-1 betting them separately, it's even, and maybe I lose just a fraction of juice. That's it. So from that standpoint, that's why I decided to go separate with it in the end. But it's personal preference. It's all subjective. It depends on how you go about your bankroll, really. There's no real clear right or wrong answer to how to go about it. It's just a personal preference. And for me, I would just what I would do is I would go separate all the time on a first period over and full game over, 2 individual bets, and then maybe a smaller parlay on the 2. That's the ideal approach I would go with for that. But good question. Good stuff. Hope that answers it. All right, we got bargain bin special of the night. 2 games here on this Tuesday night. Matt, what are you looking at here for bargain bin special?
So bargain bin, I'm actually going to do something a little interesting tonight. There was a couple options here. I almost took a shot with Stankoven. I think he's like plus 310. But what I'm going to do for the bargain bin, because bargain bin is plus 300 or better, I'm going to do the first period over 1.5, the full game over 5.5, and the Edmonton money line parlayed. It's plus 310 on MGM. I love Edmonton in this game, and I love goals in this game. So it's the same game parlay, adding Edmonton money line, and it gets me to plus 310. So that'll be my bargain bin tonight. I know it's a little interesting. It's usually a prop, but as long as it's over that plus 310, it qualifies as a bargain bin.
It sure does. That's all we need. Doesn't matter what type of bet it is. If it's plus 300 or better, it's okay by us as far as bargain bin special worthy. So there you go. I like that with the overs and Edmonton money line combo plus 310 for Matt Robinson here with his bargain bin special of the night. My bargain bin special of the night, lots to choose from. We'll see. We got a game. We'll see how this one plays out. I'm just looking to see, what the price is here. You know what? I like Washington in the series. I did take Washington in game 1 as well, but I'm going to go Jackson Blake, Carolina, plus 330 is bargain bin worthy price for Jackson Blake. You can get Jackson Blake plus 330 at BetMGM and bet plus 320 at Bet365. So there are a couple books that have him as a bargain bin worthy. I'll give you 2, Scott. I'm a generous man. As you know, that's just who I am. So I'll give you 2. Jackson Blake is definitely the one I'm going to go with for Carolina, plus 330 for bargain bin special of the night there on that game. And from Edmonton, Vegas, there's some good choices here with this game. Make no mistake about it. He's heating up right now. I like him to get a point, but I'll go one step further that he gets a goal. The Nuge. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, plus 350. 4 straight games with a point, starting to find the back of the net. I like that value. And like I said, he's I think if I can remember correctly, he had a solid series against Vegas 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. He made an impact. So the Nuge, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, plus 350 for my second bargain bin special of the night. So there you have it. for my 2 bargain bins there. All right, best bets to wrap up the show with Matty Rob first. Matt, what do you like here for best bet?
Yeah, some good bets to choose from. I love the first period over in the Vegas Edmonton game, but it's a little juicy, minus 150 on some sites. I like the other game to have some goals in it. It's 2 teams that have had a bit of time off, so give me Carolina against the Capitals there in DC, over 5.5. Doesn't matter who gets it. I know there's some question marks in goaltending, some time off between the teams, but Ovi's good for a goal, and there's other guys out there that are ready to score. So Carolina, Washington over 5.5. That'll be my best bet for tonight.
All right, Carolina, Washington over 5.5. Best bet for Matt Robinson. My best bet for tonight. Now, I'm stronger and better with totals in most sports, including hockey. And most of my best bets are totals, and they've done very well. But I'm going to go with a side tonight. And I've talked myself into Edmonton tonight at plus 120, plus 115, plus 120. There are actually there is plus 120 actually still out there at a couple of books. This is Toronto, Florida, part 2. Team that lost 2 years ago comes out with force. And I think Edmonton does. And like I said, Vegas, don't forget in the series against Minnesota, they could have lost game 1 at home. They did lose game 2 at home. And then they had to go to overtime in game 5 at home. And if Ryan Hartman's goal is not called back for offside, they might have lost that home game too in game 5 against Minnesota. So don't act like T-Mobile Arena is this unbeatable place. You can't beat them there. I think Edmonton is definitely worth it. I think they're going to come out strong, hard, with force. Looking to prove a point to Vegas that it's going to be a different series this time around after getting knocked out by the Golden Knights in the second round 2 years ago. So like I said, I like Edmonton here with the plus 120 in this one on the money line for best bet here between the Oilers and the Golden Knights. Great night of hockey. I'm looking forward to, just like last night with Florida-Toronto, I'm looking forward to these 2 series as well. Winnipeg-Dallas as well. I mean, the second round has the potential to have 4 really strong matchups. And hopefully it plays out that way on the ice. We appreciate everyone joining us. Hit the like button. On the way out, we've got, for the first time joining us on the show tomorrow, Alex Bolduc, former pro hockey player, and a little bit in the NHL, brief few years for him in the NHL. He'll be with us tomorrow on the show. Looking forward to that. Perlo will be in the house as well for his usual Wednesday appearance. So that's coming up tomorrow. Maddie will be back on Thursday. And then, of course, Alex will be back in the house on Friday. Good stuff indeed. So shout out to everyone. Hit the like button. Don't forget about the Betcast Thursday night, Patreon exclusive. Make sure you sign up. Patreon.com/Ice Guys, just $10 per month. A reminder, the Ice Guys is live 7 days a week, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, Saturday and Sunday, noon Eastern. If you can't watch the show live, download the Ice Guys podcast in audio form on all major podcast platforms, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and more. Download the Ice Guys podcast when you can't watch the show live. For Matt Robinson, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Tuesday night. Enjoy the games and good luck, and we will be back with you tomorrow on Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern, for another edition of the Ice Guys.